Kenneth。
唔該，主席，我頭先
Kenneth, Chairman. I was talking about the paper Gen 1, that's the administration's response regarding the recurrent subvention. My question is para 2.
year the draft estimate of recurring subvention for the following financial year so that the HKPC can compile its annual program and estimates。嗱，我即係如果你睇翻頭先
If you look at the reply, the year end is the 31st of March. That's according to the Permanent Secretary. Now, my clarification is what is the role of the CIT? You advised the Productivity Council about the draft estimate. Do you instruct them to do the budget, or are you telling them the CIT as a controller, you tell them what the total subvention is going to be? What is your role in the whole budgeting exercise? Secretary, I defer to the Permanent Secretary. Do you want to direct the question to Annie? No problem. Thank you. Permanent Secretary? Chairman, thank you. Each year, when we inform the HKPC of the subvention for the coming year, let me set the scene a little bit. The HKPC, as we said, has a history of 50 years since 1960s. Over the first 20 or 30 odd years, each year the HKPC would ask the government for a budget, and they would specify certain requirements in terms of subvention. That would be the same as other departments, and each year the government would disperse the funding accordingly. By 1992, we have a switch to a lump sum subvention. Each year, the administration would disperse a sum of money to the HKPC, and based on the budget, they formulate their own plan for the coming year. Here, the HKPC is caught in a dilemma because they have to fulfill a public mission to promote productivity and enhance productivity. And for the work that is not undertaking in the market, or the market is not in a position to do it, they will take the lead to do it. Starting from 1980s and 90s, there were some consultancy companies that would be doing certain work. If they are providing the services free of charge, then the consultancy firms in the market out there would think that they are competing with them for the business. Now, with the lump sum subvention, this takes up only a portion of their expenditure. For the rest of the expenditure, they will have to compete in the market, and they will have to recover the fees from the market. In the 1990s, it was about 50–60%. Today, the lump sum subvention from the government represents about 30% of their revenue, and for the 60 or 70%, they will have to collect fees from the services that they provide. That would enable them to live up to their public mission, and in providing services to the industry sector, they will recover the cost. And that's the fundamental way of realizing this. This lump sum subvention, like other subvention for the government, is subject to the austerity measures. In 2003, 2015, 2018, we had the 001 formula to slash the funding, and the same applied to the HKPC. If civil servants are taking a pay cut, they will be affected. Although they have their own pay scale, but the lump sum would be affected accordingly, and there will be corresponding reduction. In formulating the budget for next year, we will look at the funding dispersed this year. We will have regard to inflation. We'll have regard to the ups and downs of the civil servants' emolument and disperse the funding for next year. The more services that they provide, they will be able to derive funding from services like consultancy services, and they will have higher proportion from these different areas. 2018-19, these our subvention takes up only 30% of their revenue. So by the middle part of a year, we will inform them that based on what they get given this year, we will disperse this level in the coming year, and the executive director will have to come up with a budget, and they will have regard to the level of businesses that they provide, the services that they make available, and the income that they will derive from them, and whether they will be able to achieve fiscal balance or whether there will be any surplus. Kenneth. Permanent Secretary. So the amount of subvention is not dictated by the Council per se. It is for the administration to work on the basis of the financial figures over the previous years and disperse the funding to the HKPC, and they will have to manage the finance according to their needs. Right, that's correct. Please wait till I invite you. Annie. 50 years ago, the HKPC was set up. Now, has the original intention changed? The HKPC is there to enhance the productivity, and you're limiting the budget. Will there be any contradiction with the original intention? You said they are caught in a dilemma. In 2009, you had the Memorandum of Administrative Arrangements, the MAA, and you're limiting their growth. Why don't you just fold the HKPC? In 2009, in the MAA, you have government officials sitting on the council. They're wearing two hats. It's just like Frank Chen on the MTRC. They're wearing two hats. Your officials sitting on the council, are they working for the PC or working for the government? It is made very clear that they have to look after the government's interests when they are sitting on the PC. And many times that the PC's interest may not be aligned with the government's interest. And you are controlling the HKPC that way. How do you resolve this contradiction? Annie. Well, should it be folded? I'm not asking that this be folded. I'm asking you to address the contradiction. If I want it folded, I would say so. I think you ought to be careful in your reply. 50 or so years ago, the whole society was different, and nobody was doing this kind of service, and we set up a statutory body to undertake these tasks. Today, we still believe that the HKPC can fulfill its public mission. In many cases, the administration may want to promote certain things that have to do with productivity and technology. we do need a specific body that has always had the capability, the technological know-how that has some dealings with the sector. Now we need this kind of organization to take forward the tasks. One example is the promotion of Industry 4.0. We started this in 2016. The industrial sector didn't have any idea what this is all about, and the HKPC had to build from the ground up, and they started with the fundamental concept and discussed with individual sectors, and they had a demo line in the HKPC to demonstrate in Industry 4.0 and also the IoT, Internet of Things. They educated this sector in these days. There are many sectors in the industrial community that show interest, and they have consultancy work to upgrade the production line to Industrial 4.0. So they do have this public mission to fulfill, and the mode of lump sum subvention takes up only 30% of the revenue, and we can achieve this purpose. As regards the role of the government on the council, now we have the MAA, Memorandum of Administrative Arrangements. It provides that the officials would have prioritized government's interests. In fact, the government interest and the PC's interest in terms of promoting the public mission, we are aligned. So we have to make sure that they are doing things that are in accordance with the law and also the MAA.
We can't see any conflicts in this respect. If they have issues to raise or recommendations to make in other aspects, we will have to examine them to see whether there is a conflict, and we can then reserve our views. We will allow other members of the Council to put forward their views first, because very often, with regard to the budget, it has to be approved after submission to government. So usually we reserve our right. But in general, if, say, with regard to the enhancement of productivity for the sectors, or the discharge of their public mission and the promotion of education, etc., they go in the same direction of the government. Therefore, I can't see any conflicts there. And all these years, the operation has been smooth. Kenneth, can I please follow up? Well, whatever it is, we have to get things going. The Hong Kong PC was incepted over 50 years ago, but society is advancing fast. I think you need to do a review. Government representatives on the council may have an impact because other members are appointed by you, and they may have to follow the views of the government. Would that represent a kind of good impact on the council? I am saying this may amount to a situation of Big Brother is watching you, because all the members are either appointed by you or they are government officials. And there are no voices from the community. So therefore, you definitely have an influence, a certain degree of influence on the council. Chairman, there are many who are nominated by the industries and also representatives nominated by the trade unions. Well, I understand you explained that already, but I'm saying that they would listen to you. Well, no, not necessarily. They will actually certainly reflect the views of their chambers of commerce. But then, even if you put this in the MAA, it doesn't make a lot of sense, is that right? Well, as the government, we have to see whether they are discharging their public mission or whether their budget complies with our requirements. But the priority of work and the formulation of the budget, etc., the council can have all the say. Well, I'm asking these questions because the information is in the report and we have the right to follow up. I know I have deviated a little from our value for money audit, and this is about policy, but then since the information is here, I think I have the right to follow up. Deputy Chair, I think I can hand over the floor to Mr. Shukafai because he has to leave early and I will resume later. Mr. Shukafai, you have to leave at 10:30, is that right? I have already declared your interest on actually something you did not have to declare. Well, Chairman, I always attend meetings or forums of the Hong Kong PC, so I just like to mention that I attend the activities organized by it. First, I'm not remunerated, and I understand the PC also works for the sector. May I ask a question? Para 1.4. It says that in 2002, the consultants said that they would look at the pillar industries in Hong Kong, electronics, and also textiles, and also relative service industries. The consultancy study was completed in April 2002, and now we are in 2019. I'd like to know whether you are going in the same direction, or is it that you have already done up-to-date consultancy projects so that you are pointed in another direction? Secretary, in my speech, I touched upon this. The sector is constantly evolving. The Hong Kong PC's business model is changing in tandem. Well, it's just a matter of big or small changes. If we cannot see clearly the future trend, we will engage consultants to do an analysis for us. I'd like to mention that the role of government vis-a-vis Hong Kong PC is policy alignment. We don't want to see a situation where we roll out a policy and the PC is not aligned with us. So we give them subvention, and you talk about value for money, and you judge the Hong Kong PC by this, then the policy is for them to deliver KPIs. I think we have not done enough in this regard. We must tell them how we monitor the KPIs clearly, and then we will know whether the PC has done a perfect job or otherwise. With regard to Mr. Shill's question, we are still examining its business model, and I can tell you about Industry 4.0. This is quite forward-looking for Hong Kong, and we asked Hong Kong PC to focus on this one. But should we commit a consultancy report on this? Well, we know Industry 4.0 is the trend, and we will be watching it closely. All along, very often when we look at each industry, we will involve consultants in order for them to advise us. Is that what you mean by consultancy reports? Mr. Shukafai, has that question been answered? What do you understand 4.0 to be? Well, you can ask the Secretary to explain to you what Industry 4.0 is about. Many people are watching this hearing. What is Industry 4.0? I think you have to explain it. The PAS or PS said that we should understand Industry 4.0. Now I give you the chance to explain it. What is the direction? What is the strategy? And what is the role of the Hong Kong PC in this? We should not just use the term Industry 4.0. I was trying to search it on the internet, but I couldn't find anything. Can I please ask you what it's about? In layman terms, Industry 4.0 is automation upgrade to an even higher level. You have heard about dark factories overseas, meaning they don't need light because it's fully automatic. They use AI to do management. It continues to collect data. When a certain part lags behind, the AI will kick in to improve the flow of work immediately. And you will not have to wait till the end to discover that the product is subgrade. So it is improvement in real time. But in order to do that, you need a lot of data. The data itself is not useful. You have to analyze it and then take action. So we are in the data age. You need to use data at a very high level so that productivity, efficiency, and yield are taken to a higher level. This is what we mean by Industry 4.0. What did Industry 2.0 do? It is just about automation of manual work by using electricity or machinery. What is Industry 3.0? We analyze data. Say, for example, you do QC, QA, you have numbers, and then you analyze the numbers to see where the errors are, and then you do follow up afterwards. But then when you have Industry 4.0, it is real time, all the time. You collect the data and you take immediate action. But you don't rely on people, but AI. Just now, the PS said that you need to apply a policy to lead the Hong Kong PC. But the Hong Kong PC is about improving efficiency and yield. However, your policy may lag behind. They should be leading you instead of you leading them with policies, according to Industry 4.0. I understand. I'm just thinking aloud. Your comment is valid. Yes, we understand that we may lag behind. Starting from the 90s, our industries have gone into the era of data. And the manufacturing sector only takes up like 1% of our GDP. It was like 30% at its peak. With Industry 4.0, the manufacturing sector is going to benefit. I understand we are lagging behind because our manufacturing industries are not here in Hong Kong. But then our policy is that there is the emergence of new manufacturing industries, which are personalized manufacturing. In other words, I manufacture something for you, but not a generic model for the public at large. Therefore, there will be high-value products turned out. And Hong Kong can certainly involve in high-value products. That is why our policy is reindustrialization. Say, if you work in environmental protection, the cost is high. However, the value will make the cost justified. People then will be happy to patronize those products. Thank you very much. Mr. Xiu has to leave at 10:30, so I'll give the floor back to him. Thank you. You said that the consultancy report was done in 2002. At that time, the Hong Kong PC did not have a direction, so you asked for outside assistance. Is it that today you know your direction, so you don't need to commit any outside consultancy work? Please do not answer yet. I have not called upon you. You can raise your hand if you want to speak. Mr. Xiu, have you completed your question? Secretary, now you can answer. We are asking questions for you to explain. Sorry about that, Chairman. Well, that's a very good question. I remember the PS said just now that we changed our subvention policy. When there is this major overhaul, you might need a consultant to tell you whether you need to change your direction of work because you are making such big changes in your policy. Those are complementary. And as the PS said, we subvent them with 1/3 of their revenue, and the Hong Kong PC will have to also complete the other part of their expenditure without competing with the industries. And we have to monitor their progress of work. So we are talking about macro and micro adjustments. This year, if there are major changes to the industries, we will commit a consultancy study. Well, they themselves work on a lot of consultancy projects, so why don't they take it on board in-house? Well, sometimes you need a third party to comment on issues. Mr. Xiu, as the Secretary said, industries took up 30% of GDP, but now only 1%. When it was 30%, we provided them with a lot of policy support so the industries could progress. But now industries only take up 1% of our GDP. So we give resources to the Hong Kong PC to support industries. But actually, it may not be 1%. Many Hong Kong people operate factories on the mainland. You mentioned Industry 4.0, and you help them with innovation. But what about the system? Is it that you allow Hong Kong merchants on the mainland to use the system to help with production? Or how is it going to help Hong Kong if they have factories on the mainland and other places? If they can have better manufacturing, they can make more money. But then the gain will be on the mainland. And does it help with tax revenue in Hong Kong? Does it help Hong Kong people make money?
Secretary, this has to do with policy. If I may attempt to address this question, it's a very good question. I mentioned 1%, 3%. That's about the manufacturing, not industry. Industry encompasses a broader spectrum of things. It is broader definition. Now, we have seen mass production over the years. Now, industry has become more individualized. It is seeking a high yield. Previously, like medicine, 80% would be ineffectual, only 20% would be effective. Now, industry is more individualized. The value-added portion should focus on the intellectual property. If there is no intellectual property, they would be competing on cost. But with intellectual property, it would be a different thing. This is Hong Kong's strong suit, intellectual property. Second, this is where the transaction lies. There are many online transactions. Now, the point where the transaction takes place is the most critical point. So Hong Kong has a very good data system, and we do have intellectual property protection, and we hope that the transactions and high value added part will be kept in Hong Kong. If they are taking place in Hong Kong, then Hong Kong will be able to derive profits. Mr. Xiu asked you about 1.4 in the report, and that's page 2. Now, Mr. Xiu is asking you about the 2 consultancy studies in April 2002. You said you've accepted the study. You also mentioned the manufacturing industry, and here we are talking about the IoT, the big data. According to the reporter, you've accepted the recommendations of the study. Now, what have you accepted? You haven't explained to us what you have accepted. Mr. Xiu asked you about 1.4, A and B. According to the report, HKPC accepted the recommendations of the study. This doesn't seem to be in line with what you said just now. There is a change of policy since 2002 or since 1950s, the pattern in Hong Kong, economic pattern in Hong Kong has changed. Here it says HKPC accepted the recommendations of the study. Mr. Xu is specifically asking you about 1.4. I think you have taken us very, very far. I think you have to come back down here on the ground. We're asking you about 1.4. HKPC accepted the recommendations. What have you accepted? That's why the Deputy Chairman asked you about the 70% of the recommendations that have been completed. And 1.4 is about the strategies. And you're not moving on with times. Now that's where Mr. Xu is coming from. You may not be familiar with the PAC proceedings. We have to get to the bottom of the matter. The Vice Chair will be following up on a lot of the issues. I think we can defer to the CEO. Mr. Xu asked a very good question. Now, he saw all these changes on the ground, and you have the big data, and you said we come back to the consultancy report regarding manufacturing. You have accepted the recommendations. What exactly have you accepted, Secretary? I was talking about the manufacturing and the industry. They are adopting big data. I'm not saying that the manufacturing sector is not adopting big data. They are, and they are moving towards Industry 4.0. The manufacturing industry would like to embrace this. Why didn't you say so in answer to the Direct Audit's report? You were mean with the truth. The Direct Audit's point was about the 64 points. Para 1.4. Mr. Xu put a specific question. He read out this paragraph. He drew your attention to that. We have done our homework, and our questions are based on good rationale. Annie, if I may supplement, Chairman, whether we conducted any consultancy study thereafter, I cannot say because we're talking about a decade or so ago. Over the past recent years, we haven't done it, but I have to go back to the record. Now, we were talking about the foundation industries, the textiles and toys and so on. These were the main manufacturing industries in Hong Kong. The HKPC takes forward the Industry 4.0. They started in 2016, and they had the upgrading and accreditation scheme for the industrial sectors to take part. There were a dozen or so companies that have taken part, covering 22 different sectors, some from the manufacturing sector, a lot from the manufacturing sector, in fact. For individual sectors like logistics, printing 4.0, logistics 4.0, we also assist them because they do have different processes and the requirements are different. For those sectors that have implemented these, we cover plastics, electronics, machinery, and so on. So for these foundation industries in Hong Kong, they are part of the manufacturing industry, although the products, the markets have changed, technology may have changed, but at the end of the day, we are covering all these different sectors. In our memorandum, we made the point that these are the main industries. The information technology is also crucial. Industry 4.0 is the harness of big data, the sensors, the IoT, and we incorporate all these elements to modernize the production. Thank you. Mrs. Xu. 2002, what was the budget at the time? If you don't have the data, please supplement later on. 2002, I haven't got the information here. Back in 2009, what was the budget in 2002? I don't have the immediate answer. You changed the new memorandum, Chairman. Maybe back in 2002 they didn't have the same budget, not as large a budget. You're talking about what the operating expenses. Maybe in 2002 they didn't have such a big staff complement as big as today. The actual sum was actually smaller than today. Proportionally, it is smaller. Maybe in 2002 they didn't have that many staff members, and you do provide consultancy services, and you have a lot of in-house staff. Maybe that's the reason. I'd like to say that today we may not have that many factories in Hong Kong, but there are many sectors that are taking orders from overseas, and they're using Hong Kong as a window and engage in manufacturing and production in the mainland, and the tax will be payable in Hong Kong. And the HKPC is supporting their system to help them do a better job. Other than the industries mentioned, in fact, there are 24 or so industries. You mentioned the Chinese medicine. This is one of the focuses of the HKPC. Chinese medicine does offer huge potential ahead of us. So when it comes to the support for production, if they can create their own brand, if they own franchises, that will offer a very good tax potential for Hong Kong. In the working report, I hope that you would cover more in this area to make the public understand what they're actually doing. I've got a couple of minutes left. If I may put another question. Para 2.6 refers to the consultancy. I know that you're doing consultancy work. I represent retail and wholesale sectors, and there are many electors in my constituency that using the HKPC service. Now, 2.6 refers to the number of consultancy projects per year. You have scaled that back. 14-14, 1,250. 17-18, I scaled back to 699, and 18-19, 944. The number has been coming down. The people tend to ask the question why you are scaling back your number of projects. Is it the case that previously you were too aggressive? What sort of consultancy projects are there? Why the downward trend? Permanent Secretary. I will explain what these projects are all about. Has the nature changed? Has the substance changed? Chairman, we are overseeing the HKPC. We did ask similar questions. One of the reasons I can let the ED supplement. We have set the objective, and we have set this numerical target that may not represent the different sizes of the project. Recently, because of the Industry 4.0, we have consultancy projects that are of a larger magnitude, and these large consultancy projects may be worth 10 smaller consultancy projects. So in terms of income, they have been increasing. But in terms of actual figures, the number seem to be smaller than before. Now, that's because of the increase in number of larger projects, like consultancy projects worth $100,000 to $500,000. One for they have 300, and 2018 that have 160 odd, more than 1 billion. Or 2 or 3 million, 1 for 60, 18, 19, 80. And each of these large projects would be worth a couple of smaller projects, and maybe worth about 10 projects of a smaller scale. So having seen these figures, we did some reflection. Maybe when it comes to the target, we have to consider some changes. Because we shouldn't lump the large and small projects together. For the larger projects, they are more, they have higher value added, and we will review this together with the HKPC regarding whether we should change the KPI. As long as they achieve the target in terms of income, they will be able to sustain the operation of the HKPC. Mr. Xiu, whether they can achieve the target in terms of income, members will put questions later on, and some may say that they will be sustaining some losses for some projects. Members will get into that. The Permanent Secretary mentioned that the number is smaller. Maybe instead of smaller projects, they are going for larger projects.
Well, could be something good if you merge smaller projects into bigger ones. The number was bigger in 2014 than in 2017-18. Given your theory, does it mean that in 2017-18 your revenue from consultancy projects was bigger than that in 2014? Was that the case? In other words, you might have done fewer projects, but in 2017-18, well, let's not say whether you make a profit, but your revenue from consultancy projects should be bigger than that in 2014-15. Is that right? Chairman, according to the figures I have, yes. It was like a jump of 100% if you compare 2014-15 and 2018-19, and that is revenue from consultancy projects as a whole. Okay, if that's the case, then what you said is established. But then I think you have to go back and review your classification of consultancy projects, or else people might be misled to think that you have done worse and worse, but then it is just that you have amalgamated smaller projects into bigger ones. Please consolidate the figures when you go back so people will understand it better. I think I should stop here. Suffice it to say that I can see that consultancies may be making a deficit while they have assisted the Hong Kong PC, but perhaps that can be taken up by other members. Can I please comment? As the PS said, with the launch of Industry 4.0, project sums became bigger because we applied new technology and the processes were more complex. We could go back and take another look, and we could go for both big and small projects. I like to say something about smaller projects. Those costing less than 100,000, the number grew 465 in 2014-15, but 655 in 2018-19. What I like to say is that under Industry 4.0, the projects have become more complex. We have to deploy more resources for them, and we like to take the opportunity to learn new technology in order to serve the sector. Mr. Shiu, any follow-up? No? Next. Deputy Chairman will continue, but please allow me to ask a question before the Deputy Chair resumes his questioning. I'd like to ask whether the administration will require the Hong Kong PC to make a profit or just to break even, or is that provided for in any way in the ordinance? Since 1967, when the Hong Kong PC was incepted, is it that your objective was purely to assist the industries post 1967 riot? But now we're in 2019, we have big data, we have new technologies. How can Hong Kong PC continue to serve the community according to the ordinance? Have you moved ahead with the times to review the ordinance? Because I think we have gone far beyond 2007. In 1967, we mostly did manufacturing, but now we are more on the financial side using big data. So has the model of operation changed for the Hong Kong PC? Have the guidelines and KPIs changed with the terms? Have that been reflected in your projects and consultancies? Shouldn't you be taking the lead to go down the route of innovation? You can ponder upon this question. You do not have to answer me right now, and I'll give the floor back to Mr. Kenneth Leung. Well, I won't answer the question again, but perhaps you can answer us next time. Deputy Chair. Chairman, is it that we are going to take a break? About when? 10:45. Can I please continue for 10 minutes? Yes, we'll take a break from 10:45 to 11. And then Ms. Tanya Chan can take up the questioning at 11, but we must maintain a quorum of 3. Thank you. Mr. Shill referred to Table 1, consultancy projects. Why don't I get more information for 2014-15 and 2018-19, and that is the span of the 5 years? I'd like to identify the absolute value from consultancy projects. But if you look at Figure 2 expenditure, you will see that the staff emoluments were very costly. And they separated staff costs, staff salary, and administrative fees. I don't know how they divided up the figure. Taken together, that was quite a hefty amount. I believe when they give you the information, they should let you know what the cost was vis-a-vis staff cost. Well, I think that would be extremely useful. Please do some breakdown and give us the information. Thank you. P.S. You gave your answer saying that large-scale projects would give you more revenue. In your MAA, KPIs could be measured according to the number of projects, the revenue, etc. Your answer prompted me to ask yet another question. In 2018-19, manufacturing support projects with a service fee of over 5,000 have been reclassified as consultancy projects, and I'm referring to 2.7 of the report. Why did you do that? Because in that way, there would be many more projects costing below 10,000. Then that means you have to take care of many small-scale projects. And that would run counter to what you had embarked to do, and that is you wanted to place more emphasis on larger projects. Why have you gone back on what you have decided to do? P.S. Can I please defer to the ED to give you the details? But in a gist, it is not an arbitrary weighting. It is just that the market steered us in that direction, and perhaps it was because of Industry 4.0. Some enterprises wanted to upgrade themselves, and those projects were more complex, like they were trying to build a new production line, or they were trying to upgrade the existing production lines so they could go for smart production, and a lot of engineering and technical work was required. So this was generated by demand. It is not that we ourselves decided to go down that route. As for the classification of projects costing $5,000 in service fee, well, I think that might be because there is an element of consultancy in them. ED, please answer the question on 2.7. Thank you. Firstly, the KPI for the consultancy report pointed out in the report, well, I admit that there is a lack of communication between the council and the consultancies. We will proactively follow up on this point and make improvement. What is going to be the improvement like? Can you be more specific? We'll improve in communication. We'll inform the ITC and the council if we have such new projects. In other words, you mean 2.8 is an answer to 2.7, is that right? When you come here to be questioned, you must have familiarized yourself with the report, because we have read the report page by page, and you can let us know, like what I said, that 2.8 is the answer to 2.7, so you don't have to ask you again. The PS, they are new, they may not know the system well, maybe you can guide them along, all right? You can continue. I'd like to add to what the PS said. Why would we like to add these projects back? It's because when we did the testing, sometimes the testing might not reach a target, and then we would tell the clients that they could improve their products. And in that case, we felt that there was this element of consultancy, so we included that in our KPI. I'd like to emphasize that in the council meetings of November and December, and also in our committee on business development, we have decided that next year, when we hand in KPIs, we would include the projects with a service fee of $5,000. We would improve the flow of work. It is not just to catch up with the target. It is just because of changes in the market. We have to move ahead with the times. So we will include these projects in the KPI. However, according to the MAA or the ordinance, should the council be setting KPIs, or is it for your frontline management team to set the KPIs? KPIs are important indicators. Is it that KPIs of each division should be approved by the council, Mr. Butt? In July, August every year, we start to formulate the budget for the coming year. And in those 2 months, we'll study the budget and KPIs with the ITC. And then by November, December every year, we would seek the approval of the council. Can I please ask a question? In 2018-19, it is said that the KPIs were not notified. I think you should rectify it. You should not just carry on after you have forgotten to notify the council and the ITC. I think you should reverse the decision and allow the council to have full discussion of the KPI before you adopt it. Shouldn't that be the normal thing to do? PS? Well, yes, indeed. We will follow up on this point later on. We'll rectify the situation. PS, every year you submit a report in July. Didn't you monitor them? Because that is your responsibility. Because as the deputy chairman was saying, you have the supervisory authority. I think we have overlooked it ourselves. We also have to tidy up the situation. What do you mean by tidying up the situation? The important thing is, what are you going to do? Say in 2019-20, will you continue to apply this criterion? Will you reverse the KPIs? Will you reconvene the council in order to take a full look at the adjusted KPI? What do you mean by tidying up the situation? Can you be specific? P.S. You have to be specific when you answer questions because we have to write a report. The report is written based on your answers. In the future, we certainly have to have the KPIs adopted. They have to let us know the reasons for adding the numbers, and if we accept their explanation, the KPIs would have to be approved by the council. It's not something bad for them to add figures, but then from a management point of view, since you are imposing such a tight grip on them, you really have to consider whether you should give them some room for maneuver, and so that their council can achieve the original purpose of setting up the Hong Kong PC. You should allow the Hong Kong PC a freer hand. I think that is the core issue. I think that is the core question you have to answer. As I said, that should be the procedure. They submit it to us and then it should be adopted by council. But I also said that because of this audit report, we ourselves also discovered that certain KPIs might not reflect the real situation and they might not be practical. I think we are going to review other KPIs again so that the KPIs are set to be practical and reflective of the reality and so that they are achievable.
In this regard, we will discuss with the council, and there will be discussions at the council subject to their endorsement. We will amend, revise the work coming up. Kenneth. There are some contradictions there. Chairman, this question may not have been answered. Maybe you will attempt again after the break. You said that this is an innovative unit, and it seems that the CIT, the Commissioner for Innovation and Technology, as a controller of the budget, would take the first step, and then it would be for the council to endorse the decision. It seems the council is more like a rubber stamp. It is the Bureau or the ITC that would take the decision first. Now, the KPI hasn't gone through the council. There are problems there. If the KPIs have to be okayed by the Bureau and the ITC, and then for the council to endorse, that means that the council is just endorsing the decision already taken by the Bureau and the ITC. Effectively, the council of the HKPC is no more than a rubber stamp. There are ex officio members there on the council, but people will get the impression that the Productivity Council is part of the government. It doesn't have the vision to lead Hong Kong to a higher level of production process. I noticed from the secretary that what the PC does has to be aligned with the government's policy. But in terms of policy alignment, do you allow them enough leeway, or is everything decided by the ITC or the Bureau first? The second question, can the HKPC provide any vision to the government to lead the policy? Or is it the case that all policies are formulated by the Bureau and it would be for the HKPC to execute the policies? That would make a difference to the business model. What you're doing, is it scenario 1 or scenario 2? Maybe you can address this after the break. In my model for this would have some bearing on the future development of the HKPC. You're keeping the HKPC, and it doesn't mean anything in terms of big data development and so on. Either you fold it, or you enable the HKPC to fulfill its function back in 1967 and allow it to make positive contribution to Hong Kong. Mohammed, you were not in Hong Kong at the time. You were shaking hands with Bill Gates. The Apple one. Joking. I'm just joking. The HKPC does make significant contribution to Hong Kong, especially over the past 50 years. We hope that we have a PC which has a sense of direction, which will help with the industry in Hong Kong or reindustrialization in Hong Kong. I hope that this council will make positive contribution. If they are operating under the shadow of the government, it will not be able to survive. And this may be contrary to the original intention of setting up the Productivity Council. Well, the Vice Chair will become the Chair after the break. Are we taking a break? We'll take a break for 15 minutes. We are back at 11:05.